All right, so we are going to be moving on to game number 4 right here, right now. And so spawning down here in the bottom left side is going to be tQState, who is currently down 1-2 versus his opponent, the green Zerg player, EG.IdrA. So again, a Protoss versus Zerg here in the finals of the first qualifying round. I did misspeak a little bit. It is going to be the national finals where these players are advancing to, as 8 players are going to advance. This is the very first qualifying round. Winner of this will advance, and the loser will have to rework his way all the way through the brackets to try and get to the finals once again to have one more shot at qualifying. So tQState, while he is down 1-2, he was able to take IdrA in a pretty standard game in game number 2. But in game number 3, it really shows you IdrA's skill level in that he was able to win with literally just Zerglings. That's the only tech he was able to get, or the only tech he needed to get, rather. And he was able to, like, even telling his eggs exactly where to go before they're even done hatching. I mean, he is such a commander that even before you're born, he's already telling you what to do. So telling you he is on top of his micro and his macro, like always. And so it's got to be difficult for State to come back and win this series, because right now he's going against someone where if he loses, he is done, and he also has to beat the best North American player twice in a row. That is no easy feat whatsoever. EG.IdrA once again getting the spawning pool early, which I think is phenomenal decision making from him. He's not going to lose to any sort of proxy or anything like that, which really, a lot of times when you see a player who is an underdog going against someone who is much more expected to win, you will see players go for some sort of cheese. But State is being a man, being a gentleman, and is instead going to expand after Pylon and just going to go for heavy macro play. Now the map is Tal'Darim Altar, and the reason he can get away with this is because he scouted with his probe first. He saw the timing of the spawning pool, saw the timing of the expansion. I believe he has seen the hatchery already. No, he hasn't, but he knows when it was going down. So that is going to tell him, I can get away with an expansion before my opponent can even get Zerglings to my base, just based on the timing alone. So Nexus on the way, should see Forge on the way as well. We already do, says everyone who's been watching the minimap and the production tab, and this could easily be a gateway as well. Yep, so this is completely standard play by our Protoss player right now. One thing IdrA could do, which I don't know if he will, if he wants to have a more fun game to watch, is he could, he could go cancel the hatchery and go for roaches, which I don't think I've ever seen not work in this situation, just because you get there so early that it's difficult to hold off as a Protoss, and especially with this cannon placement right here, a couple, like 3 or 4 roaches right here can take it out because they can all attack it easily. The entrance is still open as well, and a couple of Zerglings are going to be running down here. They could potentially kill these probes and get inside the main base, which not going to happen there. Cannon just now finishing, so that will be held off. But IdrA knows exactly what's going on here, and he can expect either a Stargate opener or a delayed kind of 6-gate attack, which, not that the 6-gate's really delayed, but it's definitely a much later timing attack than, say, a 4-gate. So IdrA's just going to have to do the right thing and decide what the right thing is, which in his mind is going to be expanding, which is almost always his answer in any matchup, is just get a lot of bases, get a lot of drones, and the rest is easy. So he does have that on the way, and we are going to see a bit of a macro game here moving forward. So as this game is kind of building up, I just want to mention really quick, anyone can play in these games. You just have to register us.wcg.com. That is, of course, for North American players, and since it is called the World Cyber Games for a reason, there is qualifiers for many regions of the world. Really surprised to see this Overlord still hanging out here, as could potentially get taken out by a soccer, which is why it's chrono boosted out right now. And again, IdrA, I think, it may just be playing with his opponent here a little bit. He's already won with a very aggressive style of play where he only made a lot of Zerglings. And he could have done the same thing, but with roaches in these spawn locations and build orders, but is not deciding to do that. Just instead wants to sit back, have some fun, allow his opponent to build up, and you can see State is getting a 3rd cannon, which this is such a weird place for a Zerg player to be, or for a Protoss player to be in, because you don't know, like, if your opponent, if you knew your opponent was never going to attack, you could save 300 minerals and not make the cannons. or like you don't know if they're going to attack or not, so then you have to get extra cannons, and it's really a peculiar situation for a Protoss player to be in. So we'll see if it is going to pay off or not, though. He is supply blocked, unfortunately, so that is going to hurt his pro production quite a bit. I don't know if he even has a pylon on the way. The production tab shows no pylons on the way, and just now throwing down 2 pylons, so supply block for quite a while. Not a comfortable situation when you're going against someone like EG.IdrA, who I don't think I've ever seen get supply blocked. You could kill 30 of his overlords, and he already has 30 more made in his base and doesn't get supply blocked. So the Zealot is scouting around here. This Zealot has a lot of things on his to-do list, as he is scouting around everywhere, but decides to throw that to-do list out the window and is instead going to move down here, which unfortunately his daily stroll is now infested by Zerg, so that's going to be short-lived by that regard. So the Queen is kind of chilling out over here. We'll see a Zealot to play with, and the Zealot is just going to run by. May try and go for some drones, but not even that big a deal. Look at that micro from EG.IdrA, saving all of his drones so far and doing no damage here. Once he gets the Zerglings back over here, it does lose 1 drone, but not a big deal. The Zealot trying to do as much as he can and will not get any more drones as he gets taken out quite easily there. And Overlord getting tickled to death by this Sentry. Unfortunately, the Stalker micro not the best, but the Overlord will indeed go down. But that Overlord usually dies a lot sooner than that. And what do we have coming out here? We do have an Immortal. The timing of this does seem definitely delayed based by the fact that he was supply blocked there and is working on the armor upgrade right now, as he does have +1 attack completed. EG.IdrA going for a Spire, which that's kind of fun. If you're a Zerg player, he can get away with that, I think, in this situation. And just make a bunch of Mutalisks. Really, what can the Protoss player do? Well, he can try and get out sentries, use Guardian Shields, or use cannons for defense while putting on some pressure. The reason that Mutalisks aren't used that much is for that reason, because if a Protoss player gets a couple of cannons just to hold it off for a little bit and then puts on a lot of pressure on the Zerg, what does the Zerg have to deal with the ground army? If he has Mutalisks, that's not really good at engaging Stalkers directly. Same thing with Sentries. Sentries are surprisingly good if you use the Guardian Shield versus the Mutalisks, but yeah. I don't know. It's a very interesting balance where if the Mutalisk can do some damage, then that's awesome. But if they don't, then all of a sudden you're in a crazy defensive position that's hard to hold. This Zealot trying to hold his own against a plethora of Zerglings. He will indeed kill 4, so he has paid for himself. But that was kind of like, I felt like we were watching 300 there. 1 Zealot versus 9 million Zerglings that are running around for EG.IdrA, which EG.IdrA is just loving Zerglings in this matchup. I mean, look, now all the gas he's saved is for 7 Mutalisks, and how many? I'm afraid to look at how many Stalkers on the field. 4 Stalkers on the field, 3 Sentries. So there's more air units than there is units that can shoot air, if I said that correctly, by our Protoss player, who is definitely not wanting to get supply blocked here, as he does have a bunch of pylons on the way right here. A Dark Shrine and a Templar Archives. I don't know what his plan is here, but whatever it is not very good against Mass Muta, because he currently has no anti-air whatsoever. I mean, of course, he has a couple of things, but no cannons in the mineral line, no cannons here, and doesn't even have an observer. Yeah, he does have an observer. I just guess it hasn't spotted exactly what's going on, because here come the Mutas right now, and this is not what a Protoss player wants to see at this stage of the game with so few anti-air units. Now, the thing about this is that in a straight-up fight, the Protoss army would win, but there's not enough units to kill these units quickly that are flying around. And so, look at this. Lots of probes going to die here. Not a good situation at all. 3, 4 or so probes going to get taken out, even more. And again, he just doesn't have enough units to leave him around to safely guard these locations. So even though you get a couple of shots here, it's just not going to be enough. A slight engagement over here did force a cancel on the Nexus with those Zerglings. So not good. Not good at all. The Mutalisks are engaging at a weird angle, as he could lose a Mutalisk here or 2. But nope, the Hydralisks are going to get out of there and survive for just a little bit longer. Guardian Shield, that was a little preemptive, as those Mutas weren't even going to engage there. And I really like what EG.IdrA's doing here, expanding during all this, getting defenses, and as well as just trying to snipe the pylons, and just doing everything he can to drive this Protoss player crazy. +1 attack on the Mutalisk is nearly completed. There is a Warp Prism over here, but EG.IdrA knows the chance of DTs is very high, so he's going to fly these Mutalisks over here and spot this. More DTs aren't going to be able to do that much. Spotted here by something that no longer is spotting it. So the Overseer decides to leave, but this DT is still alive. Did get 10 kills. Most of those were Zerglings, though, and the DT is still alive. Going to hide it here. However, it most likely will be spotted by these Overseers. Overseers just flying around like, hey, have you guys seen any DTs? No. Okay, me neither. So let's go back to floating around. This DT is live. Does get spotted here. Nice controller by EG.IdrA, able to spot that. Very difficult to see that on the minimap, but he had no trouble in dealing with that at all. And army size is showing 122 to 158. How many of that is roaches? None. 0 roaches, as there is 22 Mutalisks. Is he hiding how many mutas he has right now? I feel like he is. There they are. He's like, EG.IdRA's like, oh, okay. Well, I have 22 of these now. Let's go have some fun. Kind of like, I don't know, if I finally learned how to fly, I think I'd go have fun with it, which is exactly what EG.IdRA's going to do. And 2 cannons will not be enough. There's no Phoenix, there's no Archons for splash damage. 5 cannons in all is on the way. That is a lot of cannons. But unfortunately, just not enough to deal with this critical mass of mutas, which Blink is done, but these Stalkers literally just blinked to their death and will all get taken out. Keeping in mind that Mutalisks are light, they do not count as armored, so they do not take additional damage versus those Stalkers. There's a couple of High Templar in here. Don't know if we have Storm. Investing in an Archon may be very good here if he can get a couple of splash damage shots off. However, they are the older Archons, which have the much shorter arms. They only have a range of 2 rather than a range of 3, and so not going to be able to do as much splash damage just because the range isn't long enough to hit them. And a person who uses the control well will be just fine. Overseer here, once again, got to prevent any DTs from causing too much damage. Psystorm going to be on the way as well. Workers killed, 21 workers killed by our Protoss, which isn't too bad. Got to blink over here and do a lot of damage to these Stalkers. Really, I think the Mutalisks would just barely win in a straight-up battle, but the Mutalisks do cost more, so you don't want to be sacrificing them to the much cheaper Stalkers, which are much lower on the gas count especially. That's why you want to use them for the worker harass and things like that. I wouldn't be surprised to see EG.IdRA stop Mutalisk production, which it looks like that's exactly what he's doing. Just because, I mean, once you start going against too many Stalkers, at some point the Protoss player will push out, and you have to have something in response to it, and EG.IdRA's response is going to be pathogen glands coupled with infestors, which spawned a second or two too early, just so they won't benefit from that. But they will have energy for fungal growth here in a matter of seconds. And once again, going for that Neural Parasite, he also has Hive Tech on the way. We'll see if he has more success with this Neural Parasite than Neural Parasiting 1 Immortal, which is actually how he lost the last game, but he's in a much better position, I would say, in this game than he was in that last one. Just because, I mean, the supply counts, look at it. It's now a maxed out Zerg versus a maxed out Protoss. Or not a completely not maxed out Protoss, excuse me. So this is a weird situation for a Protoss to be in. Thankfully, one thing going right for State is he does have his 3rd base, but he may want to ask EG.IdRA for a loan, as EG.IdRA now has 4,000 minerals, and all EG.IdRA is doing is getting upgrades, which, as you can see, he has his Greater Spire on the way, and even if he loses all these mutas, doesn't even matter, as, yeah, a slight misclick there will cost those mutas their lives. However, I think he just stormed his own High Templar there. But all the mutas surprisingly going down as they were trying to snipe the High Templar here. And you may be going, now why would EG.IdRA do that? Well, that's because he wanted to make 16 more roaches and join up with this army. So our Protoss player has a false sense of security as he killed all those mutas, but EG.IdRA's already maxed out. Again, fungal growth on this entire army will be painful to watch if you are a Stalker fan, just because I would say like it's a football team. That does so much damage. Lots of force fields there, a little overuse of those, but will do a surprising amount of damage here. I don't know that he can win this battle quite yet, though. Although EG.IdRA did not get a bunch of spine crawlers for defense, so if he can somehow kill this army, he will be in okay shape. But with fungal growth going down, I don't know if that's going to be a possibility here. Look at how quickly this vastly superior army is going to melt it away. And EG.IdRA only has 1-1 attacks going against 2-2. And that just shows you the power of fungal growth. But our Protoss player does have really good upgrades. 3-3 on the way as well. Blinking up here, we'll be able to take out this army. Is it going to be enough to finish the Kraken off? 32 roaches on the way, still 3,000 minerals in the bank. And our Protoss player is unwisely going for Overlord kills when right now he needs to be going for the kill, which I don't know if he can. I mean, he will get nice Overlord snipes here. But regardless, look at how many roaches he's going to be going up against. And EG.IdRA going to try to engage us. There is some DTs here which are going unchecked. Just kidding, there is some sort of detection in this army. Overseer over here just barely glancing and catching a glimpse of it.